You can find eerie stories in almost every corner of these aisles, thanks to its long and often bloody history. From witch trials to dangerous criminals lurking in our city's shadows, gruesome tales of tortures to battlegrounds stained with blood. And all that history leaves ghostly footprints on our present. But let's face it, for centuries we've loved to listen and recount those eerie tales of our homeland. In books, on screens, but the oldest and my personal favourite is oral storytelling. There's just something slightly more chilling when someone recounts these tales out loud, all the while your imagination runs wild. So I'm here to take you on an excursion, off the beaten path and into the shadows, to hear from local experts about eerie tales right on their, and possibly your, doorstep. My name is Amy Gill, and I have always been fascinated by the dark stories from across the country. So, come with me as we embark on our very own eerie excursion. Now, for today's eerie excursion, I'm back in my hometown of Northampton. For those of you who haven't listened to the first episode, Northampton sits at the heart of England in the Midlands. We are well positioned between London and Birmingham. Last time we heard about multiple landlords and landladies being awoken by a cellar door violently swinging open on their first night at the old Black Lion pub, and a giggling girl in the vaults underneath the town's council chambers. Now, honestly, I would love to walk you through the dark tales of Northampton myself. I would take you to the racecourse, which is actually where I used to fly my kite with Simba on it, but it was also where they used to hang witches. But honestly, I am no local expert, so instead we'll be joined again by author Adrian Perkins.
Okay, I'm Adrian Perkins, and I'm a writer, paranormal investigator, historian. I've done children's books and history books, and for the last 30 years I just love the history of Northampton and the paranormal side of it as well.
Today we're actually heading away from Northampton town centre and to a village in West Northamptonshire called Weedon. Specifically, we're heading to Weedon Depot, which is not, as I honestly thought, an industrial estate. No, it's a former military depot built in the 19th century. Now, if you can picture a wide open field with a canal running in the middle, either side are rows of large Georgian industrial buildings. That's Weedon Depot. Today it's home to a number of small businesses, from a bookshop, a vintage shop, remember those ones, a gym, and a playground at the far end. Now, Adrian and I spend our time at Unit 1, which is, unsurprisingly, the first building as you drive into the depot. He also tells me it's the most active.
Okay, so we've come over to Weedon Depot now. Now, this place has got a real good history. It was built for the Napoleonic Wars back in the early 1800s, and in actual fact, it was finished after the war had finished. So they were still building bits and pieces. And over the years, it was extended. It kept on getting bigger and bigger and bigger because it was also used to store. Initially, it was to store munitions for soldiers. It was basically it was a store. So you've got rifles, grenades, you've got gunpowder and everything. And there's a canal that runs down the centre here. Now that canal used to go out where the road is now and connect to the main canal. And they used to bring the gunpowder in via the boats. And the railway that run down the side here used to offload the munitions, the gunpowder munitions. And further down, about a quarter of a mile down further along, they've got blast houses still. They're still there, where they stored all the gunpowder. And it was far enough away so it wouldn't do any damage to this if it all went up. So that's why they did it. But
sorry. You can imagine them on a boat having gunpowder.
Yeah,
that's
tons.
Be pretty scary though, to be the one driving the
Yeah,
boat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, some of the stuff. I mean, today they're still doing magnet fishing, and they brought out a full crate of machine guns.
Oh wow.
And that's only about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
And they found grenades in the playground at the top there, where the bits have been dumped. So live ammunition still lying about. But yeah, I mean, during the Second World War, this was still an important place for the soldiers and for the munitions to get sent out to soldiers. This place had everything, right down to the water bottles that they had to use. Everything was stored here. Yeah. But when I, because I'm interested in ghosts and that, when I first came up, there was a business. We're going in, it's into unit number 1 or business number 1 here, the big units. There are 4 businesses in here, or there was before. One was called the Booksmiths. And I'd heard reports, because I love books. Obviously, I write them, so I love them. And my book collection is huge. And there's a chap who owned the place called the Booksmiths, and he was Michael Smith. And when I went up to see him, he had such strange reports. They've got a little cafe area or counter area where you can have cups of coffee and bits of cake. And they had lounge chairs along with all the books, so you could sit and read a few books if you wanted to. It was really nice. And he said to me, he said, we're getting some really strange things going on. I said, well, like what? And he said, well, we're getting people walking around that are not there. He said, you can hear somebody walking towards a counter from along the room because there's wooden floors. He said, and one day he said, I actually moved forward to let somebody come behind me. But he said there was nobody there. Interesting. And he saw a chap in bright clothing, really garish colours. And he was, because they had the bookcases at angles all the way along the sides, and he walked behind a bookcase. So Michael thought, well, I'll go and find out if he needs help to find something. So he went around the bookcase and there was nobody there.
Adrian, if you could just describe to us where we're looking at. So we've just come into the entrance. We've got the antiquarian on the left, and we have.
Yeah, we've come through. We've got antiquarians on the left-hand side. We've got Vintiques on the right. In front of us is an old, disused lift area where they used to take the munitions up to the different areas. And upstairs we've got the reading tree, which takes up 2 units. And yeah, this place is now. Good thing you just said that, because this has just reminded me of a ghost story down here.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Now, down here we have a little girl that's been seen down here. And sometimes she goes into the toilet, sometimes she's on the stairway. But they do walks around here. The visitors centres does walks around here, and they've actually seen her as well.
Oh, really?
So several people have seen her. So, and again, another little girl. We don't know why, because there were troops here. And the families lived off-site.
And how far away did the families live from?
Only a short distance, only just down the road. But up here, it was sort of full-on army.
That's a very, very out of place ghost.
Yes, exactly. Again, in a situation where you think you would not find a child. But when we go upstairs, she fits in up there. I'll tell you about that.
Let's head upstairs.
Okay.
So we headed upstairs towards the Reading Tree, which is a lovely bookstore and cafe. Now, the floorboards here, because we are on the first floor, are extra creaky. And whilst I would love to say we were surrounded by the ghosts of Georgian soldiers, or honestly, maybe I wouldn't. I'm not sure right now how I'd feel about seeing a ghost in real life yet. But anyway, the footsteps and sounds you hear in the background are of the living, or at least I think most of them are.
Okay, when we came in here and we got permission from Mike to do an overnight, and it wasn't a large affair. There was only about 6 people here, and we'd also been given permission by Liddy and Vintiques to go around there downstairs. So we're going to do both units during the night. And we'd set up cameras all over the place, and we got a big screen so people could see where the cameras were looking at. And we were sat here, and one of the people that came along, a friend of mine, he's a photographer, and he got this complicated camera. There was switches and stuff all over it. And we were just sitting here doing our thing, and he said, "Look at my camera." And we looked at his camera, and the switches were moving on his camera, and he said, "I've got a feeling I've got a little girl here." And it was the first time, it was before we knew about the girl down the stairs. So this is the first time a little girl had been mentioned. And he said, "She's following me around, she's playing with the equipment." He said, "I can't film anything at the minute." So we were obviously filming, so I said, "Don't worry about it, let her carry on." And she did for the whole evening. She carried on doing it. And we got, when I do a lot of stuff, I leave recorders in areas where we leave alone. And when we went downstairs, there's a sound of books falling off the shelves onto the floor. You can hear the pages going as they hit the floor. And when we looked around, there wasn't a book out of place. But recently I've came up here to do a talk. And we did a talk in the corner, and as we were setting up, books started coming off the shelves at the back. This is quite an active place. And when you come up here, it's when you're not expecting it. You know, you're sitting down to have a cup of tea or coffee, and all of a sudden something will happen. Corner of the eye, or a book will fall off a shelf. That's what you're getting all the time. But when Michelle told me that she was getting the same thing when she took over, that Michael was getting when he had the business earlier, that sparked my interest. And I said to her, what explain exactly what's happening. And she said about people walking around. She hears voices and she goes to look and there's nobody there. It's exactly the same thing that Michael was having in the business earlier. So whatever's happening repeats itself over and over again. But it's interesting when you talk to people about ghosts and spirits, because people think ghosts and spirits are the same thing, but they're not. A ghost is just a recording that replays itself over and over again. And this is what they're getting in these buildings, right? It can't move anything. It's just a recording of a video, if you like. You can't interact with it. The only thing that moves objects and interacts with a person is spirit. And that is something I'd love to see here. They think they've had it in Vintiques, because while we were down there, I had people coming up to me and telling me what they'd seen while we were investigating the place. And there were these little tags, price tags, hanging on the hooks. One of the price tags was horizontal and spinning. The others were standing still. And they thought, well, that was a bit strange. And then the place was empty, and the person down there was looking after the place. They knew there's nobody in there. And they'd got one of those dinner gongs with a gong on the top, and you hit it. The gong went off. So they went along to see what was going on. It was still swinging, and the hammer was back in its place. They've had pictures falling off walls and a mirror. Now the mirror was interesting because they heard this almighty smash, and they thought, oh my God. So they went to investigate. The mirror was off the wall, sitting on the floor, not damaged. Not damaged.
That's
Yeah. When I did a circle down in the Vintiques downstairs, I did a circle in one of the corner rooms, and I asked people just to imagine what's going on. And the weirdest thing happened. They all started swaying. But normally, if you've got your eyes closed, you will sway a little bit. But they were all swaying together, as if they were on a ship. And when I said to them, I said, "You're all doing this?" And they said, "No, it couldn't have been." And I said, "Well, how are you feeling?" And half of them said they felt drunk. and we knew that there had been a few parties down there and people have had a few drinks.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you think military barracks, even if it's been ammunition, there's always going to be connotations you've got here.
Yeah.
You've obviously got the obvious notion we were talking about before we started recording, the fear of about to go into battle and everything like that. But also at the same time, I can imagine there was a few soldiers, getting drunk, having a bit of a party.
They do. Yeah. I mean, it's soldiers, they're letting off steam.
Yeah. Moving on from phantom drunkenness, we head to the corridor that splits the bookshop in half, and we stop by a closed window tucked behind a row of bookshelves.
Yeah, we are in between the two units upstairs. At the time that this happened, one unit was a art gallery, the other unit was booksmiths. And Lydia had undone the came to unlock, and she noticed there was a gap in the door. Now, you'd think in an old building, yes, doors do come open and that, but there were heavy bookcases in front of the door, and the doors open from the inside, and you couldn't get to the door latches because of all the bookcases in front of it. So when she said about it, I said, well, I can't see a way that it could happen. And she said, no, nor can we. And there was security outside, and they saw nothing. Yeah. So that's what drew me back for a second time to do a second book on the place. Yeah. But it was really interesting. And the place never ceases to amaze me because it's still going on today. Yeah. 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 So, yeah. It's incredibly interesting. And I feel like a lot of the building work itself is very preserved. Like, it doesn't feel like much has changed. No. I can imagine. No, not much at all. And it gets extremely cold up here because there's no heating. But the actual building itself, you can actually go outside and you can read the buildings. So they used to have hoists outside on jibs, so they could hoist stuff up into this building, and that was the access door for that. But it's almost as though most of what's happening up here is mischief. Yeah. The touching of stuff, that's got to be spirit. Yeah. That can't be ghost. Yeah. And when you go downstairs and stuff moving, spirit again can't be ghost. Yeah. Yeah. So you have to identify the different things. Yeah. The footsteps, do you think that's probably more ghost? That's ghost. That's recording. Yeah, that's recording. Yeah. It's the thing is with the ghosts and spirits, as I said before, the thing is with ghosts is it's a super recording. It has sound, it has smell, it has vision. Yeah, it's moving. It's a video. It deteriorates over the years so that you get a see-through and lack of colour. Then part of the image deteriorates and disappears. So you get a pair of legs walking across the floor, right? Then the whole thing disappears. The last things to go are sound and smell. So you'll hear someone knock at the door, you answer it, there's nobody there. You hear someone walking upstairs. The stairway may have been moved, but you'll still hear the stairway going, right? And that's the thing. And you can sit in the living room or any building, and you'll suddenly get this either tobacco or scent, very, very heavy, like the old stuff. In the olden days, the old boys used to mix tobaccos together to get their own mixture. So they used to use 2 or 3 different mixtures of tobacco. When that burns, it's a distinctive smell. And if you smell that, it's because 100 years ago, someone was sitting there smoking, and you can't see them now. Yeah. But that's what remains. Is that something that happens in this building? Tobacco? Yeah. You get the tobacco smell, and you also get the smell, it sounds really strange, of mouldy uniforms and Hessian sacking. Yeah. Now, Mark, who I said was a prison officer, well, for 15 years he was in the military, and I was in the army as well, and you get that smell of damp khaki and Hessian sacking. And it's distinctive, and we recognised it straight away in here. So when we said about what was stored in here, but one time there were racks of rifles, and the next time there was, bags and rolls of clothing and stuff like that, bales of clothing. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, they were used for a lot of different things. And obviously, like we talked about the storage
But there would have been somewhere surely where there would have been people, soldiers staying on
Yeah,
site
the barracks. The barracks were. It is now a housing estate.
Yeah. Okay.
But
Yes.
interestingly, when they built this housing estate, it's a modern housing estate, but they used the same design as this place. So when you go off site and you go to where the barracks were and this newest housing estate, they're built like the barracks.
Okay.
All the houses have the same architecture.
Yeah.
It's really good. It's really good.
It's nice that they preserve that feel then.
Yeah, and there was a cavalry. There was an equestrian school here as well.
Okay.
So you get all the streets. There's an equestrian way.
Yeah.
You know, there's Regiment Street. There's Fusilier Street.
Yeah.
All the different regiments and things like that. Mainly up here. I mean, I think it was during the Second World War. It was Remy. So they were engineers. Yeah. So they were up here doing their thing. Yeah. But it's a huge place.
It is massive. I mean, how many buildings? I think I probably counted 6, or are there more like 8?
Oh, there's more over here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's more over the back. There's the engine shed where they kept the train. There's also machinery sheds along there as well. There's so many because, as I said before, it kept evolving. It kept growing, and that's the culmination of it. And you've got bastions, what they call bastions, in the corner. So they were defensive units, and they've redone one of the bastions to how it used to be. They've completely rebuilt it, and it looks actually brilliant.
Yeah. Before we go downstairs and we talk about the ghost downstairs, just while it's in my head, has there been any, from a historical perspective, has there been any documented accident? I mean, we talked about how the gunpowder was transported and stored. Has there been any tragedies on this site that we know of?
Yeah, there have been. Yeah, I mean, obviously the 2 murders that we know of, they're sorted out, and we also have.
So if you could tell, because we didn't get that on recording.
Oh right, okay, yeah. What happened was there was soldiers that were returning from the Boer War, and nerves obviously shot because they couldn't take family or anything with them. And they got back, and their nervous state was such that the fights broke out, and 2 soldiers were actually stabbed. Separate incidents, but they were stabbed by the barracks, and that was one of the things. And we also had a report of people dying because of accidents of things falling. And there was a massive fire in one of the units across the way. That destroyed a lot of stuff. We don't know what caused it, but we don't think anybody was actually killed in that. But there have been so many accidents here. When you're dealing with explosives, things have to be right. Luckily, these soldiers were on it, and they were pretty good at what they did. So yeah, I mean, in the first house I lived in Weedon, one of the foremen who used to work here used to live in that house. And that's the first place I ever saw a ghost. And it frightened me to death. I was 6 years old.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And the house still there today. And I was doing a Zoom talk to a group about ghosts and spirits. And this woman kept staring at me, and I thought she'd frozen. And I thought, well, she's obviously frozen, and the screen's frozen, but it wasn't. She was just staring at me for an hour.
Oh, really?
And at the end of it, I said, any questions? And her hand went straight up.
Oh, wow.
And she said, what house did you live in Weedon? I said, it's in Oak Street. What side of Oak Street? I said, opposite the sweet shop. When did you move out? I thought, this is getting a bit close. And I said, I moved out in 65. She said, you're talking about that ghost in that house? I said, yeah. She said, I'm sitting in the living room now of the same house. Fantastic. It was fantastic. Yeah.
I bet that's why she was just staring at you then.
Yes. Yes, she was just so intense on this story. And she thought, I can't believe it's going to be this house. Yeah.
Oh no, that's insane. That's incredible. Great. So we're going to head back downstairs.
Yep. Yep.
No, so all day. So the new bits tend to be.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the the white walls or the floorboards I need. But in my head, this looks very much like somewhere like an infirmary. Like
Yeah.
I can picture.
There was a
beds.
hospital here, yeah. They did use it across the way there, but it was a self-contained unit, so they had their own sort of religious meetings and stuff like that. So, you know, there was in one building along the way there, they found in the wall like a chalice type thing, but it was like a christening thing. So it was a mobile. I forget what you call it, a font.
Okay.
It was like a mobile font, and it was used for that. But they had some of the ghost stories down there are of people singing, and they can hear soldiers singing. Or you'll go around the back, and people will say they've seen soldiers marching backwards and forwards. Yeah. But it's just extremely patchy. Yeah. You know, one day you'll see it, next day you won't. So, yeah.
But this one, the one that we're in, number 1.
Yeah, building
this
one.
Is, building 1.
Yeah.
It's a little bit warmer down.
Yeah. It is. It's warmer in here. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so now we're into Vintiques, and we did a bit of an overnight here in here, and we had people walking down here, and because you've got all these different bits and pieces, you don't know what's attached to the items they're brought in. Yeah. So I thought, well, we'll get some people to come in and see what they can find, see what they pick up. Yeah. And we were walking down here, and we noticed that down in that corner there, there was activity down there. You remember I said about there was a price tag that was spinning. That was down in that corner on the right. Okay. And also there's a pair of legs been seen in boots and white trousers, uniform of the time. They've been seen walking about. And if we go down further, okay, that one there, I said about the people swaying backwards and forwards. Well, they were standing just there. And interestingly, Michael Smith, Lily's partner, he was here with his son, and we were standing just here, and there was a glass case here, and he was standing, I was standing there, and his dad had moved right down there, and he was talking to his dad because he could see his dad's legs in the glass. He thought he was standing next to him, and then when he looked, there was nobody there. Oh wow. It absolutely freaked him out. And that was another one. And also one of the girls picked up on, she kept on having her hair tugged. Yeah. And she picked up on Michael's grandfather. Yeah. Because she described what he wore. Yeah. She described the pipe and his mannerisms and everything, and Michael recognised who she was talking about. And he said, I wanted to contact him for ages. Yeah. But there, that was the ghosts down here. Yeah. And things are still happening today. Yeah. You know, it's quieting down. Lily's not a believer. Yeah. But it's quieting down a lot. But if you imagine all the things in here, I mean, I don't know if you've heard of the psychometry.
When
you touch an object and get the information from it. Yeah. All these objects have got a story to tell because they've been with other families. Yeah. You know, all the statues and all the dogs and everything come from other families. So you're going to pick up on something.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Put that together with the building as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. You've got a very live place. Yeah. It's fascinating. I'm still coming up today. So. Yeah. It's really interesting. Oh my gosh. Yeah. There's so much stuff here.
I love I only ever really shop in vintage shops and everything like that.
Yeah.
And whenever I come to these places, I do feel a bit. You can feel the energies of things. You could be in a really, really modern building. You put all the old things together, and I feel like objects as well, because they're so small, or maybe we have more of an attachment to objects than we possibly sometimes do for buildings.
Yeah, we do.
The objects, I think, can be so incredibly intense.
Yeah. A possession a loved possession.
Yeah.
If you die and you pass it on to somebody else, if it's a family member, it means a lot to them. You'd see in the repair shop on TV, right? Possessions mean a lot.
Yeah.
But when you move it on to another person who don't know anything about it, doesn't mean that power's still not in that object.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I completely agree. I hope you've enjoyed this eerie excursion around Northampton and Weedon. Of course, you can visit the Weedon Depot for yourself. It's not just for ghosts, of course. There's the Reading Tree and Vintique. They are both cute, small businesses, and they are really lovely. But when you're there, just listen out and watch out for those sounds of footsteps. There may not necessarily be a living body attached to them. To find out more about our tour guide Adrian Perkins, check out his website. The link is in the show notes below. That's it for now, but you can follow this show on YouTube and Instagram. We're at Eerie Excursions, where you can see pictures of the places we visited today. And to be sure you don't miss out on an excursion, follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. I'll see you next time for another venture into the darkness.